Hey guys, what's going on? Shah here. Today we have a excellent video for you, I think. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of my Patreon's VOD review requests things that I'm going to try to figure out. Today we're looking at one of my Patreon's VOD reviews and walking through everything he did right and wrong. He will be playing the Brewmaster Monk in this, so thank you so much, Linus, for sending me this footage. Thank you, Linus, for sending me this footage. It was really fun to look through. There's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about in this video, so hopefully it helps. Now, of course, I'm going to use this as a plug for my Patreon. I've never really talked about it, but if you're interested in having your keys reviewed, your key runs reviewed and looked over by, a third eye or someone who also ends up taking keys a lot, I'd be more than happy to do that. You can check out my Patreon down below. And of course, if you end up liking this video, hit that like button down below. It really helps out the channel. All right, let's dive into it. All right. Really quick, before we get into it, I just want to give a little bit of context about this key. So he doesn't have a ton of experience in anything much higher than 15s, so you're going to see a little bit of hesitation through some of the pulls. That's obviously natural for someone who is a little bit uncomfortable in that tanking role in higher keys. There's a lot going on. You don't know the damage profiles. You're kind of figuring out routing. So I'm going to point those out in the video. And of course, there's going to be a little bit of rotational errors. But again, I'll talk about all that in the video as well at the end. So if you kind of want just a quick snapshot of everything to improve on, of course you can go to the end of the video there to check that out. Secondly, this was mostly a pug. I think just the mage was a friend. They were in Discord together. You can actually see up in the left hand corner, like under the buffs, the small like Discord overlay. So that's pretty much kind of everything you need to know about the key before we need to jump in. Also, again, no flame. Everyone's trying to improve. Just love here. So let's dive into it. Now, there is a lot to get through in this video. There are, there's things that are done right. There are also a lot of things that are done wrong. Not here to really judge, not here to criticize, just here to try to help, coach, give some suggestions, kind of figure out what you could, improve on. So thank you so much, Linus, for sending me this clip. It was actually really fun to go through. I've watched it probably 2 or 3 times through already. I'm going to try to... I stayed up way too late and I watched them last night before I went to bed. Now I'm going to try to do it again. Now it's kind of like a fresh mind, fresh cup of coffee. Let's get into it. So of course, like all videos, I'm going to go into the UI first and talk about some of the issues in your UI that I would maybe suggest to change. But again, UIs are completely subjective. So however you want to set up your UI, it's totally up to you, but there's a few things you can optimize. First things first, your timer for the key is overlapping your cooldowns of your group. So as a tank player, it's hard to know who has cooldowns, who doesn't. Yeah, that's kind of the big no-no that I kind of noticed right off the rip. It's also kind of hard to read your buffs up there in the corner, in the left-hand corner of the screen. And of course, your nameplates, which you do enable after this pull, you can't see where anything is in this pull. You have no idea what the scale binder is. The fish stick went off because of it. You had leg sweep though, ring and paralysis available, so that could have been prevented. A couple other UI elements that I would maybe like kind of tune in a little bit is your chat box. It's giga big. You could probably reduce this unless you're doing some gold shire RP. You can probably fit this down into the black bar. I know that's kind of getting into like the realm of how my UI is set up, but this is not necessary and it takes up a lot of screen. And then boom, then you'll have a spot to put your timer. You can move this down a little bit so you can actually see your party frames. I would personally actually kind of, take these 2 elements of your UI and hone them in a little bit towards the center so you can actually see what cooldowns your, people have available, what kicks are available. You're going to get whiplash looking up to this corner. Not a big deal. And then there's like small things like, I don't know why, like you're tracking so many DK abilities where you don't really need to, but you're tracking your own abilities, which you shouldn't need to because you have them down here and in your UI. And then also like you're tracking like no paladin, like there's some really good paladin utility you can kind of track, but the most important thing for you is like tracking the major cooldowns. So you have like things like breath, you have big frostworm dragon and pillar of frost. And then you could track like Deathborn and Icy Veins and maybe Lust. And then for like the Shaman, maybe just like some of his healing CDs. But yeah, you're like not tracking enough on the Paladin and you're tracking too much on the DK. Outside of that though, like again, UI is just subjective. I like these bars at the bottom of the screen. It helps with viewport. What this means is it allows you to see further to either side. This goes for anyone who's watching. If you're able to see to either side of the screen, you can actually kind of see where patrols are. You can see where mobs are moving around. You can see where your group is positioned, so you can kind of optimize some of your gameplay elements. But you're also kind of zoomed in here, like really zoomed in here. So it kind of defeats the point of having this UI. But again, it's subjective. So if you like it, you like it. That roll there on the rock was incredible. All right, so the next thing I kind of want to talk about after watching this a few times through is the use of Purifying Brew, or maybe the lack of use. If you're seeing this glow, it means hit it. That's like my biggest thing, is a lot of monks make the argument, it's like, oh, I'll just wait till I'm in red stagger before I purify. But that's not really how the monk should work, or that's not really how you optimize your healing. So like right here, you could be purifying. Okay, good. You purified there, and then you Celestia Brewed at 4 stacks. So there's a number above the Celestia Brew. Once this value disappears, you'll actually start seeing it once you purify. So now you're at 3 stacks. So how this works is it's kind of has like each level of stagger has a corresponding number to that it has a valued number that gets added to your Celestia Brew. You have 10 stacks that you can get up to, being the max, most efficient Celestia Brew. So low stagger, so green stagger is 1. Medium stagger, which is yellow, is 2. And then, of course, heavy stagger is going to be, of course, 3. If you purify in heavy stagger, no matter what that heavy stagger looks like, whether you're have a million stagger or like just barely enough to get into your red stagger, it's going to give you 3 stacks of the Celestia Brew buff. You essentially want to be purifying as much as possible. Even if you're in low stagger, like green, you can still purify, and it'll give you 1 stack. It'll refresh the buff, and it'll make your next Celestia Brew a little bit bigger. Now, of course, you obviously, when you're purifying red stagger, those stacks are going to go up faster. And typically what ends up happening is you want to be able to get to 10 stacks before the cooldown of your Celestia Brew, comes up. So you can just go into a 10 stack Celestia Brew right away. So don't just purify in red stagger or maybe yellow stagger. You should be purifying roughly every 6 seconds. And the other reason for that is because every time you keg smash, you're taking 3 seconds off of your purifying brew cooldown, which is like 13 seconds roughly. It scales with haste a little bit. And of course, the high tolerance talent will also have a little bit of a little bit dictation over that. Long story short, purify way more often than you already are. And this goes for any Brewmaster player. Like right here, you could already purify good. You purified right off the bat. You had a medium stagger, so you had 2 stack there. You should be keg smashing. You have a charge. You have a charge of keg smash. There we go. You always want to keep these on CD. Always keg smash. Keg smash as aggressively as possible, because this is where all your damage is coming from. If you have the 4-set bonus from this season, it gives you like gargantuan health. It gives you a massive, absorption, not absorption, healing. It's insane. Always be keg smashing. Good ring on the fish stick there. So there's a lot of hesitation in your gameplay too when it comes to like using CC. When you know that a fish stick is coming, which is good, you should be paying attention to fish sticks in this particular instance. Just because a fish stick's cast is coming up doesn't mean you need to stop everything you're doing to kind of focus on that cast. Now, of course, getting comfortable with the ebb and flow of combat is fine, but like you'll notice in these next couple pulls is like you will hard sit in your ring of peace, like you press ring of peace, you're waiting to put it down, and like you're waiting for fish stick to come out, which is just like not that efficient, because you want to be optimizing every global. You want to be purifying as often as possible. You want to be keg smashing. You want to be using your blackout kicks. You want to be using you want to optimize your cooldowns, Nizao, whatever it might be. So this guy, kind of scary to pull on a raging week. Luckily, you beat the stomp there, and then you're going to kill before the next stomp. But this guy without a soothe in your group is kind of deadly. Again, purify. There you go. No, you didn't purify yet. Purify. Purify. Just hit the button. Just purify once. Get your stacks going. So right here, this is really bad. Keg, Nizao, keg, spinning, spinning. It's not how our rotation works. So here's what you want to do. And I'm going to explain why, because I pulled this up already. I'm going to jump over to Raider.io. Here's your build. Here's what you were running. You're running pretty much a similar thing in the 18 Gambit. There might be some small gear discrepancies, but we're going to just go with assuming that you were pretty much in the exact same build. Scalding Brew. Keg Smash deals an additional 4.3% damage to targets affected by Breath of Fire. Come back here. Keg, Nizao, keg, spinning, spinning. Your Breath of Fire is not on cooldown. your opening rotation should always be keg, breath, and then keg, because you want to get keg smash to apply the brew to the targets. Then you want to breath of fire to apply breath of fire, the debuff, and then now the mobs are taking more damage from your keg smashes. So at this point, you can keg smash again, and you have weapons of order coming up in literally 1 second, or 2 seconds, I guess. So you could weapons, keg, and do like giga damage. But instead, spinning, and then you're holding your Ring of Peace just so you can get this Scalebinder, which again, you could have done with a Paralysis or a Leg Sweep if you were actually targeting the Scalebinder. So whenever you're going into a new pool that has a Scalebinder in it, and you know that you're going to be the one seeing it, target the Scalebinder and keep it targeted. You can also set focus to it if you'd like. Set focus is another great tool that a lot of Mythic Plus players, I think, miss out on. Having a set focus target or set focus CC macros is really, really, really beneficial. But leg sweep hits all targets, so you could always just leg sweep as well. And then another thing I'm going to point out, you're running Dizzying Tumble, which targets affected by your leg sweep deal less damage to you for 5 seconds after coming out of leg sweep. You can use leg sweep a lot more aggressively as a defensive cooldown, as well as a form of CC for stopping some of these, fairly important casts like Fish Stick. All right. Anyways, on with done with my little rant. All right, so pulling back a little bit, this is good. You want to try to stay away from Zolgamex pull because you don't want mobs to pat into this. You also don't want mobs to pat behind you into the Goliath. Fish Stick cast coming out. Who CC'd that? Was that a Death Grip? I couldn't tell, but you guys got it. Goliath's coming in. Now see, like this is what I'm talking about right here. Like you kind of like hold ring and like you're kind of like, it's almost like you're uncomfortable using it or you're like trying to think about it too much. If that makes sense. Just rewind it a little bit. Yeah, so Fish Stick went off here, and like then right here is where you're like thinking about using ring, but you're not hitting any buttons at all. You're not doing any damage. You're not even auto attacking. Like you're just kind of like trying to figure out what to do. You can clash this guy in, this Far Fishmancer, and then once his root's done, you can ring him a little bit further away if that was like your intent. It was kind of confusing to look what you were doing here. You did mention, and I mentioned this at the start of the video, that this is your first time doing an 18. You kind of just went from doing like 15s to 18s, and you were like kind of uncomfortable with like the routing and like how to do it. So of course that obviously plays a huge factor. But that's kind of what I would do here is I would like roll out, clash, then Ring of Peace away if that was the intention, was to move the mobs back here. I mean, you guys did a pretty good job at it. With the 2 Fishmancers up, moving 2 casters is always fairly difficult to do, if not in a coordinated group, of course. And then, of course, the infamous Zolgamex pull. This is a very scary pull. I never recommend actually pulling this because there's a lot going on here. You have a Wave Jumper doing extra damage. You have Fishmancers casting bolts as well as Pufferfish. You have a Scalebinder's Fish Stick that's currently active, still not dead. Then you also have to CC the Bat. Zolgamex has a giga amount of health. It's just a messy pull, and it's not worth the bounty, in my opinion. If you have the ability to group skip this, you do. You need 52% trash to head down to boss to be good for the rest of the dungeon. You can go down with a little less technically, but that's with pulling in extra stars here, which is not great. Hypnosis Bat needs a CC. The Asphyxiate comes out. Dodging the Shadow Eruption, which is fine, and you're finishing up the Murlocs. So in a pull like this, it's always a priority to kill the Murlocs first before actually trying to kill Zolgamex, because Fish Sticks will cause a lot more discomfort for your group than actually like Zolgamex herself. But again, it's just like not worth the time spent, I don't think, to do this pull. It's very chaotic. So in theory, you guys will be good to go down after this, after Zolgamex dies. You guys could advis right to boss. You'd have perfect amount of percent. You'd obviously have your extra bounty. Paralysis goes out on the Bat here. Good. And yeah, then you guys would be set to go into boss. But unfortunately, you guys end up pulling these Stormforged Guardians. Again, at the end of this pull, you can kind of see like you're sitting and you're not purifying. Like you're in Red Stagger and you're not purifying. You're focused on the Bat. You might want to get a better weak aura or make this larger. I know it's like sometimes small because you want to be able to like see your screen, or you don't want it to be like too chaotic, but being able to see if you're in Red Stagger is very important, especially as a Brewmaster Monk. Like you should know what your stagger is at all times. So yeah, Stormforged Guardians, the infamous Stormforged Guardians, the melee killers. These guys are really uncomfortable to pull. They're bad for melee. They're bad for uptime. Now, of course, there's MDI strats, and, you know, there's a reason that the MDI is pulled in such a fashion. These mobs are fairly efficient if you're pulling them into boss, but again, you don't pull them into boss unless you're in the MDI. You can get a lot of extra percent from these guys, which means a lot less murlocs, which means a lot less headache on the beach. But pulling these guys in general is very, very dangerous, especially because your paladin was out of mobility. You're running 2 wheelchair DPS melee classes, and you pulled guys who do like a 30-yard AoE around them, these charge pulses. Yeah, like for you, it might not be bad because you're not a DPS. 2, you can roll out of them every time, but your DK and your paladin will run out of mobility. These guys are enraged. You don't have a soothe, and they will kill, you know, your DPS. Now the second pull is not as bad because one of them is actually a Nathrazim, but still not efficient at all. You don't even need this percent. Like, you're way over already, which is kind of nuts. All right, so we're gonna skip ahead a little bit just because it's a long pull. Here we are. Nope, still in the pull. Still in the pull. Still in the pull. All right. Yeah, unfortunately, you don't have a combat timer. I can't really tell how long you've been in this pull for. I skipped ahead a good bit. So yeah, it's just it's not too efficient to do this. All of your DPS trying to get out. And he finally goes down. Okay. All right, so first boss. I think you guys do a pretty good job getting this boss down, but there's some CC issues, but I'll talk about those in a bit. All right, so first things first, taking him here is totally fine. I personally like pulling him off to this end marker a little bit because having him closer to one side of the room means that as soon as the ad comes down, he'll already be stacked with one of the ads, and then the other ad you can just kind of provoke in and you'll be set. But when you tank him in the middle, you kind of have both ads to deal with, and sometimes that's a little annoying. It's always after these frontal cones that ads spawn, by the way. So as soon as the frontal cone comes out, you can move to one of these ads. So if you tanked him on the N, the boss, this Vault Purifier would have already been stacked, and then you could just provoke this other one in. You could clash this guy in. You can Ring of Peace him in. The Death Knight can grip him in. Boom, both mobs are stacked. You guys are set. But instead, because you're taking him here, he's going to wail on your Shaman a little bit. The Death Grip actually does grip him in, but now the boss is out of position. Luckily, you guys had a bunch of burst damage to kill those ads, and you guys are good to go. All right, so sanitization cycle. As soon as... Oops. Holy shit. Sanitization cycle. As soon as that like little weak aura ticks 0, you can click on this council already. So you're already late. You click on it. I'm not sure how like the positioning of this weak aura, like it might work for you, but it's like covering up the symbol. So you have to like reposition your camera here, which takes time. So not to flex, but probably at this point I would have already clicked the 3 symbols that light up. You don't have to wait for them to all to pop up. You can actually click them in the order. So this is the first one that pops up. This is the second one that pops up. This is the third. This is the fourth. So you would go red, blue, and then you would go yellow, purple. Purple would be the last one. So then you would just hit send really quick. So this takes you a little bit of time to do. Like you're repositioning your camera. You're trying to figure it out. Yeah, that took way too long. But, you know, everyone does it differently. And then you don't have to wait up there. Like the weak, like you kind of like stood here for a second waiting for your group to put their markers in. You could easily just like turn around and get in position to, you know, start hitting the boss again. But, you know, just small, minor little like increases. Your DPS would appreciate it more too, because they're able to like continue doing damage then quicker if they can see the, you know, icons quicker. And again, like I would, so since there's poop here, I would have pulled him over to this side. So it's like, okay, there's shit over here. I can pull him left-hand side by the H, or whatever you would call this symbol. And then the ad will come down pretty much on top of this man, and then you can just provoke the other one in really quickly. So this mob is spawning here by the end, so he's obviously opposite corner. Yeah, just like kind of awkward. This guy's wailing on your poor mage. You can clash. The way your camera's positioned, you can't even see him. Now your back's facing the boss. Don't ever do that. There's obviously DPS gains you can get by having your back facing towards the boss for stagger, but that's kind of a complex strategy that I don't recommend to really anyone who doesn't know the ins and outs of stagger. And then you guys get one more ad phase here, which again, if you just had him over by this H symbol on the left-hand side, this guy you could just provoke in, clash in, get him stacked in nice and easily. I can't remember if you guys beat... I think you guys go into another cycle because you have 10 seconds to do 16%. I don't think that's happening. Make sure you're kicking these bolts as well. On high tyrannical weeks, these will start one-shotting your group members. Ads go down. You could already have been clicking though. Oh, another thing you could do is set up a transcendence. You could set up a transcendence the first time you're up here, and then you could have just transcended. Nice little time save. Yellow, red, purple, blue. There you go. Send. And you're set. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to this stuff, so like that's always slow to me. All right, then you guys should be able to kill well before ad spawn. Yeah, you guys are set. All right, so good job on that first boss. The only thing I would really try to improve is like positioning on the boss, making sure you're near an ad so you can get the other one in quicker, so it's not meleeing, you know, your DPS. All right, after the flashbang goes off, we find ourselves in Borealis Harbor, grouping up some of these mobs. So here's the other thing too, is because of how much you pulled at the start, I honestly was like, oh, maybe they're gonna invis skip this stuff, and then no, you guys just hold W through this area, which again is fine, but you're already so far over percent, this was definitely not needed. And then on top of that, I think you're pulling an extra Natherzim in the cave. I don't know who tagged this in because you definitely didn't. It might have been one of your ranged DPS. Rocky comes out, and then Rocky gets like destroyed. Poor Clarence. This is a really scary pull. I'm trying to like figure out, like you're not applying Breath of Fire again. Like no breath. Like this breath should have been active a long time ago. Because now you don't have any keg smash charges. Now you should be keg smashing. Keg smash, keg smash, keg smash, keg smash. Again, you need healing. So yeah, you should be keg smashing on cooldown. Like this is about to hit 2 charges. This should never, ever, unless you're in between pulls, like this should never hit 2 charges. Okay, it just did. Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire, breath, 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 breath. You're missing out on so much damage, my dude. Also, like the tier set for Breath of Fire, it gives you a 4% damage reduction, which isn't insane, but the way it kind of compounds with stagger, you know, you take it. You take the little victory. So you're missing out on a lot of damage, and you're missing on damage reduction by not having Breath of Fire active. All right. Make sure we're focusing Tide Sages here and kicking Brackish Bolts as often as possible. I guess I haven't played with it in a while, but because I don't use Omni CD. I use a different weak aura to track kicks, but it actually tells you what people kicked last. So you can actually see the Brackish Bolt icon, which is what is actually, this is super nice. All right, Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire, breath, 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 hit breath, hit breath, purify, hit breath, purify, hit breath. All you're doing is kiting with Weapons of Order active. Yeah, so you're playing this way too defensively by like trying to kite. You have your brews, you have CB, you have breath, like you have keg smash, you have weapons up, like you have so much here, and you're like just playing defensively. Now again, of course, you were probably a little bit nervous in this key, being it, you know, a lot higher than what you're normally used to. Obviously, raging it's kind of scary, but your caster's already died in this pool, so like there's no stress. All right. 4-stack Celestial Brew. It's probably going to drop though in a second if you don't purify soon. You hit CB early. If you're going to CB early, I would just at least try to get a double purify to get that stack up a little bit. Yeah, so these stacks right above the Celestial Brew, it's kind of small. They're really hard to see. It says 5 right now. 8. So again, your goal is to hit 10 before this comes off of CD. Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire. There you go. Keg Smash. Keg, breath, keg is how you're pretty much your rotation. You can spinning crane kick if you want damage. You Tiger Palm if you want cooldown reduction. And then, of course, Blackout Kick on cooldown. You definitely don't need a kite here. Like, when you have double Purify up, like, the staggers should be able to mitigate most of this damage. Because you don't have breath active, like, you don't have shields. You're not keg smashing, so you're not keeping up your, like, giant health pool from your tier set. You can weapons this pull already. I would keg, weapons, keg. Nope. All right, so here you hit weapons when you had 2 charges of keg already. What's nice about Weapons of Order is it actually refunds you 1 keg smash. So you don't want to be capped on keg smashes because it's refunding you 1 full charge for free. So you always want to spend a keg before you weapons. So keg, weapons, keg if you're going to do that. So the ideal rotation, just again, I think I said it earlier a little bit, but it's keg, breath, keg, weapons, keg, keg. And then that's like a pretty big burst damage. You'll have Nizao active from weapons, so then when you start purifying, if you're taking big stagger, you can also purify in between those keg smashes because the kegs are going to give you insane cooldown reduction. Like a weapons of order pretty much gives you one, like obviously a keg smash charge, but that pretty much in turn gives you a purify back. So just something to keep in mind. Looks like you guys aren't kicking these brackish bolts. You finally kicked one there. You did kick, but you missed. That's fine in a pug. That happens all the time. You have ring, you have sweep, you have paralysis to stop some of these kicks, and you're not using any of them. There's double targeted here. You could have sweeped. Oh, you already sweeped. You could have ring then. Paralysis is a great stop. It's a great, you know, fairly short CD stop for a cast if you need it. Yeah, so your rotation has like a lot of glaring issues with the way that you like don't apply breath. You're kind of keg smashing and like you're tiger palming too much without blackout kicking. Blackout kicks like you're probably your biggest gain. Oh, here's fun. This is funny. So you went to pull the boss and you lost threat to your DK, which happens a lot, but the way you pulled it, so you opened with a keg, then you tiger palmed without using provoke. So when you pull a boss, you should pretty much always be provoking because you want to generate that additional threat. So when you're doing things like this and moving the boss, you can actually do that. So you're starting to move, trying to get him back to the corner, and then your DK, or no, your rep paladin rips because he just divine told into him. Was it paladin? And then you provoke him back, but then you roll. So your taunt now is expiring, which means you're not establishing additional threat. When you taunt, you're actually getting a massive threat multiplier. You have about a 42 times multiplier on that target for those 3 seconds. So you always want to taunt, and then you want to hit them with the biggest ability you have, and in this case, it would be keg. So ideally, it would be like a provoke keg into breath, or a keg into a blackout kick or something like that. Which is fine, but there's a very easy fix to this fight. If you're doing corner strat, just start over here, run along this, provoke him back over here, and then you can just turn him around. Instead of starting him here and then trying to walk back and forth, because that puts your whole group at risk with things like hook swipe, and of course with infinite breath. This fight goes to shit, by the way. This fight was really funny to watch. And it was also kind of like, I don't know the words I would use to describe how this fight ends up going. First breath is fine. You get the first breath off without a hitch. You roll out of the breath, which is fine. You lose threat again because you're not optimizing your taunts. Taunt, and then keg smash immediately. Taunt, do something that's not just provoking, because a taunt is useless if you're not doing damage within that 3-second window. It's a very hidden text element, or like gameplay element of this game. I wish it had it in the tooltip about the threat multiplier. You could have actually hit, this breath could have killed all 3 of these, but you actually like sidestepped to the 1 brute instead of to the 2. If you had it down the middle, it would have hit both of these right up when they got off the boat, and it would have been clear. This is what starts the shit show. So you're moving boss towards the center, which is a play that it's not bad to do if your group knows how to CC. Right here, you could have ringed these mobs back into the breath right before it went off. You didn't. You save ring for this point, which is weird. You ring on the shaman, who has to run to the side anyways to dodge fire, which means that the brutes are now no longer affected by that ring because it's just inefficient. You hit the 1 brute. So at this point, what I've learned in my months of tanking this dungeon is that if these brutes ever get past the dragon, just leave them. They get cleaved down eventually, especially once they start getting underneath boss. They'll just die eventually just to like cleave. They don't have a lot of health. You're trying, so here you kind of panic. You try to get in. This goes off. Either commit to your movement on the brute or just start aiming this at the boat again, because you want to. This will get cleared up eventually. But if mobs keep coming in is where this becomes a real shit show. And it will in a short bit of time. The poor melee on this fight. Also the poor range. So here, kind of decent movement, but then you end up like only hitting 2 and not the 4. You get hit which puts you in a very bad position. This is a horrible position to be in. If you're ever next to the boat with the dragon, that's rough. Now your Brett's facing the group. The mage blocks. This is the craziest fight. You end up sidestepping too far, and then you miss the third brute. More brutes are spawning in. The hook swipe's gonna knock them really far. Your poor shot. Look at this shaman. Splat. Dead. Oh my god, dude. I fucking can't, man. This is the craziest shit show I've ever seen. You're like trying to clean it up. You're doing God's workout here. The good triple brute on that. But again, like, they're under the boss. These guys should die to cleave. Just aim this breath at the boat from now on to continuously keep ads at bay instead of letting more and more come in by trying to clean up your... Like, just sweep it under the stove. Sweep the mess under the stove. The next people who live in your house will clean it up. Just focus on the brutes that are coming in. That was a joyous fight to watch. The shaman's like, dude, my heart, man. Oh, the sorry XD is incredible. Okay, so that was rough. So first things first, pre-position, provoke the boss into like that corner if you're going to be doing that. Also, when you're provoking a mob, no matter what it be, whether it's a boss, whether it's trash, do damage to it right after you provoke it. If you provoke and then you don't do any damage, you're actually not going to be gaining any threat. The threat's just going to drop after the provoke ends, or the taunt. The Ring of Peace was designed to probably knock this guy to you, but what ends up happening is now he's too close to the patrol, and it looks like you're going to go in here, and you end up, I think, pulling it, which was a mistake, because you only have breath. You don't have weapons. You don't have... wings was just pop, so you have probably, like, what, 10 seconds left on wings? Divine Toll was already used. You don't have Deathborn. Again, kind of hard to see these because they're underneath a timer. And you're also losing threat to a Ret Paladin. You paralysis the Far Ritualist, which is a fine play. I don't think anything ends up breaking it out. It's still CC'd back there, which is fine. CC just broke. Unstable Rift's going off. You have the Asphyxiate come out. The DK clutch play here. Paladin goes down because of threat. If you're ever going to pull big like this, at least make sure you have weapons up, because that's obviously really important. Keg. Which is fine. Just trying to, like, Rift's going off too. And then these Reinvigorates are going crazy, man. You're letting so many go off. You guys are kind of out of CC. You do have Clash. You have a roll Clash available in your toolkit to stop one of these. Link goes down to stabilize. As long as you're kicking the Rifts, like, Reinvigorate's like, yeah, ideally they don't go off. You're not kicking. You have kick available. Shaman has kick available. Mage has kick available. You have kick available still. You're not kicking. Kick Hyperlight Bolts if you're going to... If you're not going to kick anything, at least kick Bolts so you're taking less damage. Rift goes... Oh, that was so clutch on the Cap Totem. So it's funny because, like, when you're in this shit show Fiesta, you're hitting all your buttons. But when you're in, like, a pool that you're maybe more comfortable in, you're not hitting buttons at all, which is not the right way to play. You should be playing, like, this aggressive all the time with your shit. Like, you're purifying on CD. You're typically keeping breath active. Right now, you're not. You should be re-apping. There we go. Blackout kick. There you go. Yeah, it's just, like, you play well when you're, like, oh, shit. Which is good. You play a little bit better when shit hits the fan. But yeah, all right. So Nathrsim comes in. Unstable Rift's going off. DK has kick for runic power. You're taking a ton of damage. You have a CB available. Just pop weapons. You should just be so you like weapons purify spin. You should never do this. Like if you ever pop weapons, the first thing you should be doing is Keg Smash. Keg Smash is a heal. Keg Smash heals you. It gives you max health. It also gets all your threat. Like this fixes threat for monks. Weapons, Keg. Weapons, Keg. These two empty globals, are not empty, but like these two globals are so useless in between. I mean, I guess Purify's fine because it's off global, but still. Those Purifies were a little too close together. It's all good though. You have Keg Smash back up. Purify goes down to 8. This is where set focuses really come in handy, because you could just set focus to one of these casters and then you could just, you don't have to worry about anything else. You could just kick it whenever it's casting and then, yeah. Breath, keg, breath, keg, breath, keg. You breathed before you kegged. Linus, my dude. Keg, breath, keg. Keg, breath, keg. That's all you should be doing. Keg, breath, keg. Weapons, keg, keg. You can make like a little rap song about it. All right. So far, so good. All right, so here's kind of a little sus moment. Double star seer, no. 2-target cleave is not great. Your healer has CDs, but like pulsars, man. Dodging these. Okay, so here's another thing. You can drag these mobs over to the pulsars for cleave. Your DK runs off to do it. Your paladin's staying on these guys. He doesn't even give a fuck. These pulsars need to die. And like, if you have someone like this, like your rep paladin, I don't know what he's doing. He might be padding. He might not know. He might be an idiot. He probably eats glue because he's a rep paladin, but he probably, we're going to just assume he doesn't see the pulsars because he's facing, you know, he's facing at you, seeing like these nice little crates that are, you know, back behind you. If you drag these mobs onto the pulsar, not only are you going to get better cleave, but your actual, like the DPS who aren't hitting these pulsars will maybe start hitting them accidentally with cleave and they'll die. But right now you guys are taking so much damage because there's 2 of them active. And you're not doing anything about it, and neither is the rep paladin. And this poor shaman has to heal through it. Your frost mage can't do a lot of damage to them because it's a single target, and your DK again is a DK. So yeah, you gotta drag those on top of the pulsar there. They don't have, like, outside of the drifting star, like they don't really have a frontal. The frontal faces a random person, so like even if you drag them over to the pulsar, like it might face someone who's next to the pulsar, it might not. So you shouldn't be scared of moving these mobs. These mobs are pretty easy to move too. But yeah, this pulsar is not getting cleaved down. That DK's, you know, doing God's work right now. Okay, they go down. You were at 100%. How long ago were you at 100? Dude, you were at 100 before the Starseers. You were at 100. You were at 100% before this poll. Look at your percent. This is the Nathrazim single pack. So look, 100% trash. You had 100% trash on the last poll. So you're already done, and you have double Starseer, which is like 3% each. Nathrazim, which is 1%. And then these guys who are all worth like 1-ish%, maybe a little more than 1%. 1.5 or 1.3.5. I don't remember. 1.16, 1.16. So yeah, very inefficient routing. You have all this, like, you would have been on boss already at 9 minutes left, which is like not too chestable at this point, but like this group could probably 2-chest the 18. All right, let's get back to Soleil. Starseer. All right, Soleil. I saw these markers go down and I was like, oh no, they're doing it. Sips coffee dramatically. I see double markers go down and I'm like, fuck. This marker's fine. This is sus. This is a bad strat. You have weapons active too, which you should be utilizing. All right, so here's what you're doing. You bring this guy over. You could provoke him to make him run faster. You didn't get him over here fast enough, so the ads already spawn. So the reason people do this strat is because ads will spawn it. Because of pathing, they won't be able to spawn outside of the room or over here because of this line of sight. So they spawn on top of the boss. That's cool. Good strat. Saves you maybe 1.5 seconds. Problem is they're still going to port out if they can. And when they do that, they're still going to go back here. They still need kicks, and your shaman will still need to do collapsing star. So coming all the way back here is kind of a waste of time, in my opinion. I've seen groups do this. I don't understand the tech because it saves you minimal time at best, and it just makes it more complicated with more movement. So Assassin, if you saw that, he still ported out. He came back in eventually after a kick. Shaman has to do this now by himself without the help of his group. Now, again, some healers are fine at doing this, but the Shaman probably wants to stand still and heal at least a little bit, and typically the tank or a DPS can jump in and tag one of these. Benefit of doing this, go, is, you know, the group is stacked nice and tight, so the Shaman has better healing. You were able to use an AMZ there. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this strat. I don't like it. I don't think it's effective. I think it's a waste of time. Because the mobs, like right here, so they are spawning, which is fine, right? So maybe if you have a way to like counter the port, but look, they port. They're up here. Now this guy's out here. Like, they still port out, and you still need kicks. It just saves you that extra second of like grouping up. Good clash there, finally. I think that was like your first clash of the dungeon. Maybe used it a little bit before, but I never noticed. Figuring out which star. Good reason to play with the friendly nameplates, so it's good on you for playing with these. I typically enable them on this fight specifically, but I don't play with them most of the dungeon because they interfere with actual enemy nameplates, and they cause an issue with stacking. And then, yeah, you're going over to this corner. So, okay, on this first move, you can stop here. Like, where you are right now, about 10 yards out from Skull, perfectly fine. But what you do is you keep backing up even further. Now, the problem with this is that when he does his Hyperlight Nova, it's going to cover this entire area, as you will see here shortly, and you're going to actually almost get stuck on these boxes. It's nice for dodging. This is a fine strat. Mage still gets hit. So casters and stuff should actually be back here with you, facing the room. And actually, the way your camera's positioned is you can't even see these where the stars are coming from. You should tilt your camera down a little bit. Just a little. I mean, it's fine because you're dodging them. They actually expired before they even got to you. Collapsing Star. And here's the other problem with this strat is that now look how far the Shaman has to run. He's like off the screen. You're going to barely get out of this. The Shaman's out of range of you, so any damage you take, you're on your own for. And now look how far the boss is away, and then you don't even move him after this. You just stay here. Dude, that Shaman, this poor Shaman. Dude, where is he? I can't even see him. I'm like tilting my head down, trying to like see around this like little bar at the top. This is too far. Skull is probably the furthest you need to go, and that's where you should be standing. It's fairly easy to dodge the Hyperlight, the fragments from right here. And then your Shaman can actually still heal the group without having to, like, do a marathon to get back and forth. Doing a goddamn 5K every fucking fight. So, like, this is how your camera should be positioned so you can actually see these fragments. Also, when he does his power overwhelming, look at how far you have to go. That's insane, man. There's no reason to be this far back, is all I'm saying. If you're far enough for the fragments to actually straight up disappear, you might be a little too far. Yeah, look at this. So, and here's the other problem. So right here, you have like 4 wheelchair classes. You guys are going to panic, and you're all going to try to go for the same relic. You're going to split. You don't know where to go, and missed relic. Here's something you can do, though. You could set up a Transcendence in the middle of the room. Each phase is about a minute apart, so you can always transcend to the middle to get to these far relics really quickly. You guys are gonna finally try to get here. You almost collide, which is super scary. If you get hit by 2 lines at the same time, you'll actually take 2 stacks and instantly get dead. That mage, oh, so close. And then same thing, like you could stop right here where he is, but you're gonna keep trying to move him back all the way to Skull, which is just bad. You don't need to go this far. Stop going this far. Also, when you were running, he was just like mailing you in the back. Don't run straight away from the boss. Make sure you're running like sideways, I guess. So like tilt your camera, strafe, I guess is the best way to describe it. The only reason he should ever hit you in the back is if you're trying to optimize your Nizao. Now, I mentioned that earlier. So the idea with that is Nizao does damage based off of your stagger. You'll always stagger you'll always stagger damage when you get hit, especially from melees. If you turn your back to mobs, you'll get hit and you won't dodge, because Brewmasters are known for dodging. That's their like main form of mitigation outside of stagger. Since you're not dodging, your stagger will be higher, therefore you can purify more stagger, therefore your Nizao does more damage. That's the way to optimize it. But yeah, this corner, you pulled him way too far for your wheelchair melee to get to. And then here, you're gonna actually just like, I think you just end up soaking it, but, which is fine. Like if you're comfortable soaking it, you're good. But your DPS are kind of in an awkward position, especially if you get into this next overwhelming power phase, which you guys do. You tried touching there, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see your touch of death though. So you guys were able to make it fine to this set, and then you guys just killed. So you guys ended with the key with like 3 minutes left, which is perfect. Not perfect, but congrats on your Keystone Conqueror Season 4. GG. At the end of the day, time key is a timed key. So good job. Let's talk about some of the things you can work on, things you can improve. All right, that was a pretty fun run to watch. There's a lot to learn from this run as well. So of course, we're going to go over that now. So a big thing that obviously I pointed out throughout the entire key was Purify. Purify your stagger way more often. There's no reason to sit on it. You're already getting cooldown reduction from keg smashing, especially when you're playing Kyrian with that Weapons of Order. It's a really strong Covenant choice as well as an ability. And then in result from this, you're going to have higher Celestial Brew stacks, meaning you're going to get higher, valued Celestial Brews, which just means more self-healing, more self-sustain, just all in all, it'll make you more tanky. Next, we have to kind of fix your general rotation. So here's how it should kind of look. So before you go into a pull, you should Rushing Jade Wind. Then it should be Keg, Breath, Keg, followed by your Weapons of Order, followed by like another Keg, for example. Then maybe like a Blackout Kick into another Keg charge because you're going to need that energy back. And then at this point, you're going to refresh your Rushing Jade Wind. And then at this point, you can go back into maybe a Keg Smash into a Tiger Palm. Essentially, you never want to sit on a charge or 2 charges of Keg Smash. You want to be using it as much as possible. Not only does it do the majority of your damage, it's going to do the majority of your healing, as well as just increase your health, and all in all, just make you super tanky and do a lot of damage. Utilize your toolkit. Just make sure you're using Leg Sweep on cooldown. This will give you the damage reduction from it, as well as keep mob CC'd, prevent your group from taking damage, interrupt a lot of casts, just pretty good. Also, like, you have your Spearhand Strike, you have Paralysis for stopping on casts, you have Ring of Peace, of course, which you used a good bit in this key, but not necessarily the most efficient way. And then, of course, you have Clash. Clash is something you didn't use a lot in this dungeon. It does root the mobs you hit with it, as well as stop casts. So you can roll away from your mob and then clash to the target, rooting everything in place, interrupting casts, and just all in all, really good CC that you didn't utilize that well. General fixes to your UI. So Omni CD, kind of maybe play with some of the tracking cooldowns you're using, so you can definitely remove some or add some depending on how you like it, as well as move that timer down a little bit. You can't really see the Frost Mage's CDs as well as the Paladin. You weren't tracking many of the Paladin cooldowns, but if you were, you wouldn't be able to see them. And then just make your chat box a little smaller. Those are kind of the big critiques I have about your UI. And then also make sure you have your nameplates enabled at the start of the key. And then, like, the last, I think maybe big thing is when you provoke a target, use damaging abilities. You want to capitalize on that extra modifier you're getting from the provoke buff. This goes for any tank. So any tank, if you taunt a mob, make sure you're dealing damage to it, or you're going to lose the threat that you should have generated instead. And then there's some like little minor issues. When you have mobs, you don't want mobs to be spread out too much. So like, for example, at the very end of the dungeon, those Starseers, pull them together, especially on top. What I mean is on top of the Wandering Pulsar, right? So keeping mob stacks, effectively adding cleave to your group, killing things faster. This can happen at the start of the dungeon too with Murloc, so you can have a lot more control, especially if you're using Clash. It'll keep targets rooted, therefore keeping them stacked, therefore allowing your group to do more damage to them. You can probably track your stagger a little bit more efficiently using another type of weak aura, or maybe making your weak aura package a little bit bigger, because you're just not really staggering effectively. And then last but not least, just Blackout Kick way more often. You're missing out on a lot of single target damage, both in AoE pulls and on boss fights, because you're just not utilizing that spell whenever it's active. It doesn't really cost energy, so it gives you kind of that extra energy back during that 1 second global to get your Keg Smashes off. And that pretty much does it. Thank you so much for watching, Linus. Thank you for sending me this video to let me kind of go through it and walk over it. It was a lot of fun. Kind of fun to watch that Time Captain Hooktail. That was a shit show of a fight. Hopefully your next time you're in there, it's not as hectic as that one. But again, thank you so much, and appreciate you guys all for watching. Hope you guys are staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.